So I feel like not enough Americans have any idea what's going on between us and Iran because American media fails to give historical context and they just use lightning words like war, Iran, Middle East, bombs, missiles. And I'm like, okay, Queen. Sure. So I'm going to explain it in a way that makes sense, and I'm going to tell the truth. So the government that runs Iran today exists partly because of something that we did decades ago. So back in 1953, Iran actually had a democratically elected government, meaning that their people voted for their leader the same way that we do. But that government tried to take control of its own oil instead of letting foreign companies like us profit from it. And the United States was like, and we overthrew them. So we replaced their democracy with a dictator called the Shah. And this happened whether the people of Iran liked it or not. And hint, they didn't like it. But the CIA had essentially looked at Iranian democracy and said, yeah, we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. We can't have that. So for the next couple of decades, the Shah ruled Iran. Sorry if you see me itching myself. There's mosquitoes out here. But the Shah ruled Iran with U.S. backing until 1979 when the Iranian Revolution happened. So basically huge uprising. The people overthrew their government and finally removed him and created the government that Iran has today. So I know what some people are going to say. Some people are going to be like, but Iran's leadership today is oppressive. So isn't this a good thing that we're going to war with them? No, war is never good. Okay. It's not our jobs to be Captain Save-A-Ho, first off. But yes, Iran restricts women's rights. They crack down on protests, political opposition. That's real. That's not propaganda per se. But what's important is that their government exists today, coming out of a 1979 revolution, which only happened because we overthrew their democracy and replaced it with a dictator. Why are we leaving that part out? When people are like, oh no, the United States had to step in because Iran's leadership is bad. Well, the political conditions that created that leadership were heavily shaped by our intervention. So in other words, the United States isn't solving a problem that just appeared out of nowhere. We're intervening in a situation that we helped create decades ago that has now gotten essentially out of hand.
First, most people know Iran was Persia, right? Some people don't know that. I say that and they're like, what? I thought Persia was a fictional area. No. It was Persia. It was renamed Iran in 1953. 53 or 35. I might have those mixed up. But anyway, because Persia was an English name that we used. The internal name that they used was Iran. So they renamed themselves as Iran. What a lot of people don't realize was after the Persian Empire fell and Iran was a growing country, they were our number one ally in the Middle East. People don't know that. Right now we say Israel is our only ally in the Middle East. It was Iran. We had the largest embassy ever in Tehran. We ran the CIA headquarters out of Tehran. CIA headquarters for all of the Middle East and Asia was all based out of Iran. That's how close we were with them, right? Now, what happened? Well, first thing that happened was they had a prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, right? In 1953, in 52, Mossadegh nationalized their oil and said all of this oil belongs to Iran. Prior to that, Great Britain had been mining and pumping most of their oil. The United States, CIA, and MI6 did a joint venture. United States called it Operation Ajax. MI6 called it Operation Boot. You can look this up, right? We orchestrated a coup. We got rid of Mossadegh, and we took him out of power. In his place was Mohammad Shah Pahlavi, right? He was the Shah. Pahlavi, thanking the U.S. for getting him back into power, signed over 40% of the oil fields to the U.S. and Great Britain.
40%.
40%.
Wow.
Now think about if somebody signed over 40% of American farmland to another country. Americans would be pissed. Iranians were not happy. Now, Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi was actually in power as a figurehead, kind of like the king, if you will, in Great Britain, and Mossadegh was the prime minister. Mossadegh got more power. We took Mossadegh out. Pahlavi takes power again, and he became pretty brutal. He had the Savak military or intelligence. He was a brutal ruler. Iranians were getting fed up. Iranians are like, we're nothing but an American puppet. American CIA and MI6 came in, removed our prime minister that was democratically elected, put the Shah in power. The Shah is being brutal. We're giving away all of our oil to America. America's running their CIA out of our country. They had a revolution, 1979. We're all familiar with that. 1979, they have a revolution and say, we're kicking the U.S. out. We want to be our own country. The oil belongs to us. We don't want you here running your politics out of our country. By the way, the students that took over the U.S. Embassy tried to shred all sorts of documents. They went and pasted them all back together, and they've got all these documents from the CIA pretty much validating all of this, right? So after that happens, it's a pendulum swing. It was very secular, not very religious, and they're like, well, that didn't work. So in 1979, they said, we're going to put in a religious leader. And the pendulum swung over here, right? And that's where we're at pretty much today. So if you look at that, this is not a country that's just out there by themselves that said America is evil. This is a country that America orchestrated a coup in. This is a country that ran their CIA from their country and who took most of their oil. I am not defending them and saying that they're the good guys, but our hands aren't clean here, right? So when they come back now and they're like, okay, we're not even going to do anything. But then Israel comes and says, hey, you need to get rid of Iran. They don't like you. They're against you, right? And they kind of like fan the flames. And those flames are already there from before. But it's important to understand the history of how we got here. Because I don't think anybody wakes up one day and says, I don't like this country. I don't. Maybe some people do. But anytime there's a country that we don't like or that doesn't like us, we should always go back and ask why. What happened? What happened that made this animosity? And I think it's always important to go back to that and understand that, because that understanding is going to drive how we act in the future. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.